one of the best football teams in the NFL and losing, you find some of your weaknesses. You try to make those things better. And then I think the most positive, I didn't have to play Week 18. So that was probably the best for me.
That's Patrick Mahomes reflecting on the Chiefs' loss to the Bills earlier this year, as we talked about earlier in the show, about how underdog to favorite, how it flipped. It's pretty interesting, real interesting. Joining us now, Sean Salisbury, as you just heard a big voice guy. How we doing, Sean? What's going on?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you?
Good, man. I know you love your alma mater, USC. Pete Carroll to Vegas. Your thoughts on him being a Raider head coach now?
Yeah, and Raiders are my NFL team. So he gets, him and Harbaugh can't elude each other, man. They just, have, Stanford SC, Seattle, San Francisco, and now the Raiders and Chargers. I like the hire. I do. A lot of times people, somebody in their 70s, Pete's got the energy, as we all know, the guy who's 30 or 40. And it's funny or younger, when he left Seattle, when that had happened, I think people thought, oh, Pete's done coaching, wants to move to the front office. Pete was never done coaching. And they were all, both sides, obviously ready to move on. And he's got some fixing to do. I applaud the Davis, Mark Davis and, Brady and whoever else involved in the decision of making this choice. I think it was important. And a guy with experience who's been in big games and big moments, who's built teams, not only at the college level, but at the NFL level, kind of rebuilt himself from when he was a head coach early on and didn't have the same success like in New England or the Jets that he had in Seattle. I think it's good. There's an enthusiasm there, and it's needed. And so you're looking for splash hires that are also difference makers. I think that Pete Carroll brings that. And I would imagine a little bit of time off, the enthusiasm's probably back in his DNA. And I'm talking about the coach again and rejuvenated. And so to prevent the burnout. So good on him. I can't wait to see how it turns out. They need the most important thing they got to do is in the front office with Pete and that franchise. They've got to quit. They go after first round players like you would the 7th round pick. They take flyers.
Yeah.
They don't take flyers on first round picks. I mean, oh yeah, I saw this guy 2 times. Where a guy would have got drafted 25 picks later, they'll draft him with the 15th pick. That's who they've been. Now they've gotten some good players. Don't misunderstand me, but overall, they need to do a better job of evaluating personnel from top to bottom. I'm anxious to see the staff Pete puts together. I think it's a good hire. I do, and
Sean,
it's a noticeable one and one where you're like, wow, okay. And it also bodes well for some veteran coaches where you don't have to hire a 30-year-old or a 35-year-old and think that's the only way to go. He's youthful with great wisdom, so. I didn't know how it was going to work at SC when he first got there, but his enthusiasm was perfect. And then we didn't know how it was going to work. That enthusiasm college was going to work in Seattle. Well, it worked. He's just got a unique way of getting people to buy in, which is your number one priority and lead. The staff will be hugely important, though. Matter of fact, maybe even more so than the head coach, and accountability, which the Raiders need more of.
Sean, Minucci and I had a friendly debate early on to start the show. He made a case that this team won't get to the playoff. It'll take at least 3 years. And I made a case, look what Quinn did with the Commanders, look what Peyton did with Denver, and the fact that they got their $112 million they can spend. They got, the 6th pick, I think. Carroll could turn this around pretty quick, don't you think?
Yeah. I don't even – see, I'm one of those guys. I'm not a slow burn or – baby steps when it comes to turning a football franchise. Because if he takes baby steps in 3 years, he'll be fired.
Yeah.
If they play under 5, in 3 or 4 years they'll run him out. Hell, just take a look at some of the assistant coaches. I'll just stay here in Houston. Bobby Slowick was one of the hottest commodities in football last year. The Texans offensive coordinator. He goes out this year. Things seem different, maybe not as aggressive. They played not to lose. He went from one of the hottest prospects and, he's a year away from getting a head coaching job to he got fired today. And he's 2 years in after people in Houston loved him last year. Now they want him out. And it's same the head coach. We're no longer, like with quarterbacks and stuff, we're no longer patient. You either win now or they'll find somebody else to replace you. Ask Antonio Pierce about that and Doug Peterson 3 years. So you can, because you're getting high picks. If you've played your cards right, high picks, if you don't want to be there all the time because that means you're losing all the time. But high picks, you've got money, and it goes back to what I was saying. You've got to get personnel. I don't believe that it needs to take time. But what you do need to do, whether It's Aiden O'Connell, whoever you think. You've got to get the guy under center. Without him, it will take time. Look at the ones you made. Jaden Daniels is playing in the NFC Championship game, and he's a monster, and he's a rookie. Look how quickly the Texans, from a 3-win team, got back into playoff material. They had C.J. Stroud. There's a lot of other things that go into it, but it's got to start there. If that guy's not good, and having Brady in the ownership, he'll say if he's average or okay, and then it's going to take a while. But what happens, you get the quarterback and the coach, then the next thing you know, the wide receiver wants to join you. Then you use a first-round pick on a left tackle, and bam, you go. And then you got Max Crosby. And then and before you know it, you got about 8 or 10 players, and the culture has completely changed. To me, it's buy-in, leadership, culture, quarterback, once you already have the coach. So I don't think so. Now, it may take 3 years. They may not be any good. We're going to find out with their personnel and the coaches they hire to go in and get buy-in and get people to want to do the lonely work that's committed to winning again as far as the Raiders, and not a commitment to mediocrity, a commitment to excellence like they used to have with Madden and Al Davis. So now it'll all hinge on Pete's hiring and their evaluation and their scouting and who they pick and get players that can impact you right away. And it's got to start under center. I see it all the time. It's the easiest turnaround in sports is in football. It just is, because of, if you're doing it right, it's never easy, but it is the easiest of the pro sports to, you develop in minor leaguers in football. This is, if you get a monster at quarterback, the rest falls into place, and they have to have it.
Sean, and I would contend with that. I agree with that. But if you're going to have a young guy or a quarterback per se, you've got to have the pieces around you. I mean, look at Roethlisberger's rookie year. You had pieces around him, ran into the Patriots in that AFC Championship game. But there was pieces around these young guys, the Strouds, the Daniels, all the above, to help get them there. I look at the Raiders, and you know them very well. I mean, I don't see a lot of pieces. So my question is Mark Davis going to be patient? Will they spend the money? Will they get the draft choices in order to flip this thing sooner rather than later? That's my contention with this whole thing.
Yeah, and I don't know how much power he's given Pete in the building. I would imagine Pete took the job knowing he's going to have quite a bit of say in personnel decisions.
Sure, exactly.
Of course, I think he'd want that. But I don't know if he'll be patient. I know that they should spend money, and I know that they're going to have draft picks to go get. And I also know that if you'll spend money in free agency, not the 34-year-old free agent who wants mega bucks and is on his last contract and really isn't productive anymore. The name's bigger than the production. But that guy who's looking for a change, who you got to learn how to bargain basement, get guys less, buy low, sell high. You got to learn how to get those guys. So how their scouting staff,
about a minute and a half,
the development of players. So only Mark Davis knows if he's going to be patient. I do know this: Pete knows talent.
Yep.
You got to go out and get it, and you got to be willing to pay for it. And everybody, listen, regardless of the Raiders' struggles, they still want to go to Vegas. People do, and it's the Raiders. There is a history there. So if they'll pay and go get them, and there's divas too. Player empowerment's huge now, but you got to go get the guy under center. And you're right with Roethlisberger. What a blessing to go there, or Mahomes to go to Kansas City. Mm-hmm. But there are the cases. I can contend. I don't think Stroud had a lot of weapons last year. He didn't. Nico Collins was finally coming into his own after being injured. Tank Dell was a rookie 3rd-round pick.
Good to wrap after this if you guys want.
Mechie was coming out of I think with non-lymphoma, and he had blown out his knee at his last year in college. Damian Pierce was not a fit. He's a backup. He was good his rookie year, but not a fit last year because he didn't understand the inside-outside zone scheme. So they built it quickly. And what helped, though, is all the Watson, right? Yeah. Get rid of Watson and get all this stuff back. So, yeah, if you have that special quarterback, I would argue that could we name the roster offensively for the Washington Commanders going into this season? No. Could you name 5 great players on their team? That answer is no.
Yep.
But McLaurin's a good player. But what they've done is what the quarterback's supposed to do, elevate a 6 and make him an 8. If you got a guy like McLaurin, you keep him in the Pro Bowl. So, yes, you got to have him, but there are the unique ones that take a team and take guys and make them into players. And so it'll be incumbent. They got to spend. You absolutely have to spend, and you absolutely have to be aggressive doing it. You can't wait, because if you're not doing it, then you're telling us you're going to be patient. Well, it doesn't. What are we waiting on? Go spend the money. If you want to win again, like your pops did, you've got to go spend money and you got to be smart and judicious with it.
Sean, you know the drill. We have less than a minute, but just real quick, can you give us your NFC winner and AFC winner on Sunday?
Listen, we're probably gonna get fatigued and say Philadelphia and Kansas City are gonna win because they're the home teams. They've got more personnel. I would argue. I mean, it's Andy Reid, and get a couple calls from the official. Philadelphia, Barkley. It would be easy for me to say that, and it's probably going to happen. But I actually think Buffalo can go in and win the game. I do. I'm pulling for Buffalo and Washington. I think this is one of the unique rookie quarterbacks we've had. They do play defense, and you're going to deal with it. If it gets down to a throwing game, give me Washington over Hurts. And I think that Josh Allen's playing at such a high level. If they flounder around like they did against Houston, meaning Kansas City, and have to wait till the end, the game will be out of reach. Kansas City's going to have to play their best game of the year, which they just find ways in situational football to win. They're going to have to do a better job of 4 quarters to keep that 15, 16, 17 wins intact. But they'll be the favorites, but I like both of the dogs on the road this week.
Yeah, great stuff as always, Sean. Have a great weekend, buddy. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
That's Sean Salisbury joining us here on Rock and Manuch with Jimmy B here on ESPN 620. Coming up, a little Super Bowl commercial alert. It's a spoiler alert, to be specific. You remember what's that?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Well, we have a new one. Plus, it's a free food Friday, so we got some free food for you today, thanks to Arena Sports Grill. That's all next right here on Rock and Manuch with Jimmy B.